Studying medicine in the UK is a huge financial commitment. Students can expect to pay anything from £10,000 to £40,000 and even more if you're an international student, which is a crazy amount of money. So how do students fund this? How can you afford to live your life? Well, luckily, there are different things that you can do, things like maintenance loans, grants, and bursaries that you can apply for. So in this video, I'm going to talk about everything that you need to know about student finance and how it varies depending on the course that you are applying to. I'll also be covering some tips to help you budget as a student and help you to avoid financial stress during your career. So let's get into it. There are lots of different ways that you can fund your studies, but student finance is by far the most common one that is used. Student finance is basically a government-backed loan that is designed to help you fund your life as you study. But student loans specifically are different to other loans that you can get because you only have to start repaying it when you start earning over £25,000. And once you are eligible to start paying back your loan, it's paid back in monthly repayments instead of all in one go, because that means that you will gradually pay your loan back over many years. Also, your loan will be automatically cancelled after 40 years. It is really important to note that interest will be added every year to your loan, so you won't just be paying back the amount that you borrowed, but quite a bit more. The interest will be added from the day that you start borrowing until you pay off the entire loan. And the interest rate is linked to inflation and may vary over time. Sometimes it is set at the start of an academic year. Depending on where you live in the UK, you may apply to Student Finance England, Student Finance Wales, Student Finance Northern Ireland, or the Student Awards Agency in Scotland. So one of the first things that you should look into when you're thinking about applying to student finance is where you're going to be applying and make sure that you apply to the correct one. So for example, if you grew up in England, but you're going to study in Northern Ireland, you might then think that you need to apply to Student Finance Northern Ireland. But since you grew up in England, you need to apply to Student Finance England. In order to be eligible for student finance, you need to meet certain criteria. You need to either be a UK national or have a settled status. You need to have been granted residency due to the EU settlement or as a refugee, or you need to have lived in the UK for a certain amount of time if you aren't a citizen. I know that it can be really confusing if you don't fit neatly into one of those brackets. So if you are unsure about where you should apply to, then I would highly recommend that you check out the Student Finance website where you will find all of the requirements. And I will put a link to that in the description below. Now let's take a look at the different loans that student finance offers. The first one is the tuition fee loan, and this loan is designed to cover the fees of your course, which are usually £9,250 per year in the UK if you are a home student. This loan is paid directly to your university, so you don't have to manage that money yourself at all. Your tuition is normally completely covered as long as you are in attendance, and the university will let student finance know themselves. The second loan is the maintenance loan. This loan will help with your living costs, including things like your rent, travel, and other daily expenses, which can add up to be quite a lot. Now, to confuse you, there are two types of maintenance loan. There are means-tested and non-means-tested maintenance loans. Means-tested loans are where student finance will assess your household income to determine how much money you are entitled to. The income that they assess depends on your age and your individual circumstances. It is important to point out that it is only England that offers maintenance loans that have to be paid back. Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland will offer maintenance loans in conjunction with maintenance grants, which don't need to be paid back. These are applied for and received together. If you are wondering what the minimum and the maximum maintenance funding is in every part of the UK, then you can check out the information here. Non-means tested loans are different, and they don't take into account your household income. So you will receive a certain amount of money determined by student finance. In England, applications for student finance typically open around the time that you confirm your place at university. There is actually no real deadline for when you need to submit your application, but I would recommend that you submit it early if you can, because sometimes they will ask for additional evidence or payslips, especially if you're applying for a means-tested loan. So giving yourself enough time to submit all of that evidence and that information is really helpful and will ensure that you receive the money that you are owed by the start of your course. From the 5th year of your studies, NHS will offer you a student finance bursary, which will cover your tuition instead of student finance. On top of this, the NHS will also offer a means-tested bursary, which ranges from £1,000 to £2,643 to help you with your living expenses. Please do bear in mind that if you are a graduate, the student funding system works slightly different on 4-year courses. You can't normally apply for funding if you have studied a degree before where you have received the funding already. However, this will differ if you are on an accelerated 4-year graduate entry program. For graduate students, you can apply for a partial tuition fee loan and for the NHS bursaries, but the rest is self-funded. In your first year of graduate entry medicine, you can apply for a partial loan, but you will have to pay £3,465 upfront to the university. In years 2 to 4, student finance will loan you £5,535 per year towards your tuition fee, and you can apply for an NHS bursary to cover the remaining £3,715. If you are a graduate and you hold a degree already, and you apply for the undergraduate medicine course, then you won't have access to tuition fee loans and you will have to self-fund. You can still apply for a maintenance loan throughout your degree, and you can access the NHS student bursary for help with your tuition in the final year of your course. As you can see, applying as a graduate can be more complicated and can get quite tricky, so I would recommend that you check out this video here, where we go into more detail on applying to graduate entry programs. Okay, so now let's look at the different course lengths. For other standard 1 to 4 year courses, the tuition fee is normally £9,250 per year, and this is paid by student finance directly to your university. Some universities may request the full amount upfront, but often what happens is it is paid in 2 or 3 installments. These installments are typically paid when the university confirms your attendance and your place to student finance. If the university does not receive these payments by student finance, then you can receive some pretty angry letters in the post and can even suspend you from your course if you don't pay your fees. If you are applying to a longer NHS-backed course, such as medicine or dentistry, for those 2 final years, years 5 and 6, your tuition fees will be paid in full as a bursary, so you don't need to pay that money back. Now, when it comes to help with your living costs, then you can apply for a maintenance loan. Student finance has stopped doing grants or bursaries for your maintenance, but you can apply for a means-tested loan, which can offer you a substantial amount to help you live while you study. As I said before, the amount of money that you receive will depend on either your family's income or your own income, depending on your individual circumstances. Here you can see a table of what the maintenance loan could be and what you could be eligible for depending on your circumstances. Now let's have a look at how the application varies depending on where you're applying from in the UK, or whether you are an EU or a non-EU international. In Wales, tuition is normally provided for by Student Finance Wales and other maintenance bursaries and grants, including a Welsh Government Learning Grant, a special support grant which is supposed to help you with things like textbooks and other learning equipment, a means-tested maintenance loan offered by Student Finance Wales, and NHS funding, which is subject to the same eligibility criteria that I mentioned for England. In general, funding for Welsh students is very similar to funding for English students. The only difference is that Welsh students get additional funding in their 5th and their 6th years. Scottish students studying in Scotland do not have to pay any tuition fees for their first degree because this is covered by the Student Awards Agency for Scotland. To have your tuition fully funded, you have to submit an application to the Student Awards Agency for Scotland every year before the start of the academic year, and the funds will go directly to the university. Scottish students studying in the UK but outside of Scotland may need to pay tuition fees. However, most of this will be loaned by the Students' Awards Agency for Scotland. There are several bursary schemes available for Scottish students, including the Young Students Bursary, the Independent Students Bursary, Scottish Graduate Entry Return of Service, and more. Northern Irish students typically receive support from Student Finance Northern Ireland, but as usual, there are other organisations that can help with funding as long as you meet certain criteria. Each university will offer their own bursaries, grants, and scholarships, and students on medical or dental courses can apply for additional funding from the Department of Health Northern Ireland from their 5th year of study onwards. A student support fund is also available to Northern Irish students who experience financial struggles during their degree. Graduate entry medical and dental students are not eligible for tuition funds, but you can apply for other support with living costs. Now, for international students, this is where it can get a little bit tricky. Tuition and maintenance loans from UK organisations are not available for international students, and they stopped being so in 2021. As an international student, you may still be able to receive some grants and some bursaries from other organisations or from universities themselves. So make sure that you do some research and find out that information on their website. However, if there are no options available for you, then this does mean that you may have to self-fund your tuition. This can be anything from £14,000 up to £40,000 per year. This will vary depending on the university, but it is definitely a huge consideration, and it's something that you should weigh up to see whether it's an option for you. The final option, and one that might be the best for you if you don't have a conventional application, is to apply for a privately funded grant. There are hundreds of these grants available, and they can support people from all backgrounds and religions and different circumstances. For example, nurses who want to become doctors. There is a grant for almost everybody, so in the description below I'll put a link for a website that you can check out to give you more information. It is a list of possible grants and bursaries that you can apply for, so make sure that you check it out to see if any one of those can apply to you. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about today is budgeting. On top of your tuition fees, you also have to consider things like rent, food, travel, and other daily expenses, which can add up to be quite a lot. I would recommend that you check out this video here, which talks about how much it actually costs to study medicine in the UK and some of the hidden costs that you might not be aware of. To avoid financial stress, it's super important that you budget ahead of time. It is crucial to know exactly how much money you'll be receiving and how much you will be spending. I know it might sound really boring and quite long to do, but it's actually incredibly useful, and the last thing that you want is to end up worrying about how you're going to pay or make things meet later on. And it's much better to plan now than to worry about how you're going to make ends meet later on. So make sure that you do sit down with your parents or your family or your partner and figure out how you're going to budget and fund your life while you study. There are many different tools and strategies that you can use. For example, the envelope system. This involves breaking down exactly how much money you're likely to spend into weeks, putting that exact amount of money into an envelope, and then only spending that amount of money every week. Once it is empty, you will know that you have reached your limit, and that helps to keep you aware of your budget and your spending habits. Another helpful budgeting strategy is the 50-30-20 rule. This is very simple and quite easy to follow. All you have to do is take your monthly income and split that into 3 categories. 50% of your income goes to your basic needs, like rent, groceries, and bills. 30% goes to your wants, So things like eating out, hobbies, and entertainment. And the remaining 20% goes to saving and things like paying off debts. This method will help you to see where your money is going and will also help you to save money for the future. And the final piece of advice that I would recommend is to avoid using credit cards if possible. Using credit cards can result in very sticky situations in the future, which you really want to avoid. Credit cards allow you to spend money that you don't actually have, which can lead to quite a lot of debt if you're not careful. The temptation to overspend is very high, and it can be easy to lose track of how much you owe. If you do, however, get a credit card, make sure that you are managing it well, that you know how much you're spending and that you are paying it off. Okay, so that was everything about student finance. I really hope that you found this video useful and informative, and it has helped you to think about how you're going to budget for your degree. If you have any specific questions, please leave them in the comments below. And remember, if you are applying to medical or dental school and you would like some more support, specifically to you and your individual circumstances, then check out the FutureDoc website where we can give you more information about our one-to-one tuition and coaching. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.